Welcome, everybody, to Automoc's Patch Tuesday review for March 2022. We are thrilled that you can join us today for our popular monthly feature. And as always, we have got a session packed with information for you. Now, attendance of these sessions have been growing every month. It's just amazing to see. We look forward to bringing you all this vital information. And we thank you so much for your support. My name is Eric Feldman, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Automox, and I'll be covering the critical Patch Tuesday updates. Joining us for the crew this month is David Van Herndon. David is a manager in our IT operations group. David, why don't you say hello to the folks, introduce yourself, and tell us what you do here at Automox.
Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm the manager of IT operations here at Automox. Fairly new, under 1 year since I've joined. But since joining, Automox has grown substantially. So a lot of our focus on IT ops and building our IT ops team to support the growth of this company has been very much focused on onboarding and delivering the best service possible to our internal customers.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated, and welcome to Patch Tuesday in Automox. Also on the webinar crew this month is Senior Solutions Engineer Adam Whitman, and Adam rarely appears on this monthly webinar. Adam, your turn. Say hello to the folks and tell us what you do here at Automox.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. Good to join this webinar again. My name is Adam Whitman. I'm one of the solutions engineers at Automox. So basically, I'm an Automox expert. So anything product related, I'm the guy to go to. So great to be here again, Eric, and looking forward to a great webinar.
Thank you, Adam. And Adam and I have done tons of these sessions together, and it's always terrific. We're a great team and love having Adam on board. Okay. Oh, one other thing. David is going to be covering an important topic in our monthly best practice feature. And of course, Adam is on hand to answer any questions at the end of the session today. So we use the On24 platform for our webinars, and I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping real quick, especially if you're new to these sessions. There's a slide window that you can see, and that's our primary viewing pane where we'll be walking through most of the content today. Now, you can customize this, make it bigger or smaller, just like any windowing operating system. Now, note the QA box on the right, middle right, lower middle right. That's where you'll submit any questions you may have. And if we do any live pieces here, there'll be another window that pops up towards the upper right that'll come in a separate screen. Now, also the related content section, that's where we're going to put links to other things that are of value to you, and we're going to go over a few items today in terms of remediating vulnerabilities, and you'll see the links. I'll reference the links, and you'll find it right there. Also, at the bottom, there's a ribbon where you can, with links to our social media accounts, and we hope you'll follow us on those platforms. Now, one other item for those of you who are not currently using Automox, why not sign up for a demo? And you'll see the little banner there on the right, upper right. And in a demo, you can see firsthand how the power of cloud-native Automox can help you automate your Patch Tuesday updates. And for taking a demo, you'll get a free Yeti tumbler as well. So check us out. Okay, let's. What's on the agenda for today? Well, for those of you who are new, our Patch Tuesday webinar series that we bring to you every month, we organize and prioritize high-impact issues, and we try to offer the most vital information that impacts your environment. We're going to begin with an overview of all vendor vulnerabilities for March, followed by critical and important vulnerabilities in detail. We'll begin by covering vulnerabilities from Adobe, Google, Apple, and others. Then we'll cover the Microsoft critical and disclosed vulnerabilities in detail. After we cover the March Patch Tuesday content, Dave Van Herden will be talking about incidents and a crawl, walk, run process towards incident process maturity. And we'll have, of course, plenty of time for questions that Adam will answer during that segment. Now, I mentioned the QA box on the right, or lower right-hand side of your screen to submit questions. But you know what? don't wait to the end of the webinar to submit them. As you think about them, just go ahead and pop it right in there, so we'll get into the queue and we'll be able to take you in order during that time. Now, an important part, stay tuned to the end of the session this month because we're going to be giving away a prize. So let's get into it. What a difference a year makes. Last year, in March of 2021, we spoke about how Microsoft reported 89 total vulnerabilities. And last March, that was the third highest total for all of 2021, that 89 number. In addition, last March, Microsoft brought us 14 critical vulnerabilities, and that was the second highest total of the whole year. Plus, there were 5 exploited vulnerabilities this time last year. That was also the second highest monthly total for 2021. So, you know, March of 2021, it was really not a good year for the IT ops and SecOps teams who are tasked with patching and remediating systems. Let's fast forward to this month, this March. We have 71 total vulnerabilities from Microsoft. Now, this is right in line with the 12-month rolling average, which is just about 73 vulnerabilities per month over the last 12 months. Only 3 vulnerabilities this month are critical, and that is actually a 54% reduction in the 12-month rolling average of 6.5. Now, here's the best news to report about from Microsoft this month. Not only were there 0 exploited vulnerabilities reported, there have been 0 exploited vulnerabilities this whole year for 3 months. Now, considering that last year there was an average of 2 exploited vulnerabilities every month last year, this is really good news. 5 Microsoft applications and components are responsible for 50% of the reported vulnerabilities this month. And tops on the list, as you can see on your screen here, the Microsoft Windows Codec library. 18% of those 71 vulnerabilities are impacting the Microsoft Windows codecs. 2 of these vulnerabilities, by the way, are critical. We're going to cover those in detail in a little bit. And because those codecs are present in every Windows device, we recommend you really pay attention to this and prioritize the updates to video extensions this month. Now, as we typically see every month, 2 vulnerability types make up the majority of Microsoft's total. So 40% of their vulnerabilities are what's known as a remote code execution vulnerability that enables an attacker to remotely execute malicious code on a computer. And another 35% of vulnerabilities were elevation of privilege vulnerabilities. And that allows an attacker to, let's say, change their access rights from, for example, read-only to read and write, or possibly admin rights. So we track this just to kind of give you context on where the vulnerabilities are. So here, 75% are actually 2 different vulnerability types. Now, in addition to Microsoft, we're going to cover updates. I mentioned Adobe, Google, Apple, and Mozilla Firefox this month. Now, some of which remediate 0-day vulnerabilities. So these third-party or other apps, there's some things here that you really got to take care of. Now, as we remind you every month, all critical and exploited vulnerabilities should be patched within a 72-hour window, in particular those 0-day and the Microsoft Codec vulnerabilities that we highlighted this month. All right, that's the overview. Now, let's take a look at the Microsoft vulnerabilities in detail. I'm sorry, the other vulnerabilities in detail. We'll get to Microsoft in a little bit. All right, first up, let's get started with Adobe. Adobe released 3 security updates for Microsoft Windows and Mac OS that impact Photoshop, Illustrator, and After Effects. Adobe has assigned all 3 product updates a priority rating of 3. Now, 3 is their lowest priority rating, and that's reserved for software that's historically not been a target for attackers. Now, while Adobe recommends administrators install these priority 3 updates at their discretion, we're going to recommend giving these updates a higher priority. And here's why. Both Illustrator and After Effects had critical vulnerabilities, and they netted a CVS score of 7.8 out of 10. Now, these vulnerabilities allow for arbitrary code execution. And if you're running two different versions of After Effects, either 22.2 or earlier, or 18.44 and earlier on Windows or Mac, you're vulnerable. Now, regarding Illustrator, Windows and Mac machines running Illustrator version 26.03 and earlier also need to be patched. Adobe also fixed an important vulnerability in Photoshop versions 22.55 and earlier, as well as 23.311 and earlier for Mac and Windows. And this vulnerability allows for memory leaks. So take care of those two, even though Adobe may recommend not a priority. We also have an out-of-band priority 1 update to report from Adobe. Now, this is a critical vulnerability that impacts Adobe Commerce and the Magento open source. Adobe Security Bulletin APS B22-12, it describes the zero-day vulnerability CVE 2022-24086, an improper input validation flaw that allows an attacker to execute arbitrary code without credentials or administrative privileges. This vulnerability could be a bad one. It's scored a 9.8 out of 10 on the CVSS score, and it has been exploited in the wild. Now, this particular vulnerability, it's interesting because it draws parallels to a similar severe vulnerability in Magento back in 2015, dubbed Magento Shoplift, which was exploited in the wild from machines located in Russia. And this particular one injected SQL, leveraged SQL injection to create administrator accounts. Notably, more than 80% of Magento shops was still unpatched, nearly 3 months after this particular patch was released. In today's threat landscape, such low patch adoption could lead to higher rates of exploitation. With current events, we expect exploit attempts and scanning to increase greatly, particularly now that this particular vulnerability has been disclosed. In addition, CVE 2022-24087 is also an improper input validation issue that allows arbitrary code execution when exploited. The new vulnerability is equally severe, netting a 9.8 out of 10 CVSS score, though Adobe is not aware of exploitation in the wild. It's still serious enough to take a look at. Now, if you're running Adobe, Magento, or Commerce 2.43 and earlier, or 2.37 and earlier, you are vulnerable to attack. Patches for these affected versions, they're available on Adobe Security Bulletin webpage. But if you look at the resources section of On24, you'll find the URL right there, and we recommend patching this vulnerability immediately. All right, let's take a look at Google. The Google Chrome team announced the promotion of Chrome 99 to the stable channel for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Chrome version 99.0.484451. It's going to roll out over the next coming weeks to patch 28 vulnerabilities. Now, this release also contains a number of fixes and improvements. However, we reported on February 14th actually, that Google released an emergency Chrome update to patch an actively exploited zero-day vulnerability. Now, that particular Chrome update, that's version 98.04758, etc., that one remediates the exploited vulnerability. We recommend that you review your estate to ensure you're on the current 99 release. All right, let's talk about Mozilla Firefox. 2 critical vulnerabilities for Firefox were announced this week, both allowing remote code execution in use after free versions of the software. These are critical zero-day vulnerabilities, and they've already been exploited in the wild. The following are the updated versions you should update to: Firefox 97.02, Firefox ESR 91.61, Firefox for Android 97.3, Focus 97.3, and finally Thunderbird 91.62. We recommend patching within 24 hours to eliminate risks for your organization. For additional information, we have a blog about this one. You can find this also in the resources section, and look for the blog entitled Zero-Day RCE Vulnerabilities Released for Mozilla Firefox. All right, let's talk about Apple. Apple released a number of security updates on February 10th and 14th. So it's a little after our last Patch Tuesday webinar. They're often a little bit out of sync. But these updates address security issues and also provide some additional functionality. So included are iOS 15.31 and iPadOS 15.31, macOS Monterey 12.21, macOS Big Sur 11.64, and the security update for Mac Catalina and watchOS. They're all available right now. Now, pay close attention to Safari 15.3 for macOS Big Sur and macOS Catalina. That 15.3 that you may have patched several weeks ago or updated to, there's been another update to that one because there was a vulnerability discovered where processing maliciously crafted web content may lead to arbitrary code execution. Apple is also aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited. Automox recommends applying the latest Safari update to within 72 hours. And after installing the latest update of 15.3, look for this build 16612.4.918 on macOS Big Sur and 15612.4918 on macOS Catalina. Now, Apple, because there's a whole list of potential implications that may impact a broad spectrum of capabilities, Apple does not typically discuss or confirm security issues until an investigation has occurred. So we often don't know if something has been actively exploited in the wild. So as a result, we recommend that you prioritize the update of all Apple mobile devices to the latest operating system. Okay, let's get into the Microsoft updates in detail. All right, first up, let's start with the critical vulnerabilities. CVE 2022-23277. This one is a remote code execution vulnerability impacting Microsoft Exchange Server. Now, any remote code execution with an Exchange server, they're always a bad combination due to the high confidentiality of the information stored there. And also the fact that, Exchange server is fairly ubiquitous among communication platforms. Fortunately, this particular vulnerability requires an attacker to be authenticated. And while it's still critical, it's not as bad as it could have been. Once the attacker is authenticated, they could attempt to trigger malicious code in context with the server's account through a network call. With a CVSS score of 8.8, you don't want to postpone patching this one, so we recommend prioritizing remediation of this particular vulnerability. In other words, patch this particular one ASAP. Next up, CVE 2022-22006. This one is a critical vulnerability identified in the HEVC video extensions. And for those who don't know, HEVC is not, the air conditioning and heating in your building. It stands for High Efficiency Video Coding. And it's an advanced video compression standard used for video storage and playback on Windows 10 systems. This vulnerability can lead to remote code execution, and an attacker exploiting the vulnerability could take control of a system where they'd be free to install programs, view or change data, or create new accounts on the target system with full user rights. And while the vulnerability is less likely to be exploited, according to Microsoft, the attack complexity is low. So, patching critical vulnerabilities are an important first step to maintaining a safe and secure infrastructure. So this one also we recommend patching within 72 hours. Next up, the final critical vulnerability. This one is CVE VP9-24501. This also is a critical remote code execution vulnerability in Microsoft's VP9 video extensions, and it has the potential to be exploited by a remote non-authenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code on the target system. VP9 is an open source video coding format. It was actually developed by Google, and it's supported by many modern web browsers. And it's also popular for streaming over the internet. Now, here's a fun fact for you. VP9 was actually initially used at first on YouTube. And of course, YouTube is owned by Google. The VP9 video extensions enable the playing of VP9 videos on any video app on a Windows 10 device. Successful exploitation of this vulnerability requires an attacker to send a specially crafted file to beta user, which could lead to a complete compromise of the vulnerable system. Those affected will automatically receive the update through the Microsoft Store, and you can tell someone is excited about that. Okay, next up, we have some publicly disclosed vulnerabilities. And by the way, just to jump back to the beginning, I mentioned how 18% of the vulnerabilities this month had to deal with the Microsoft Codec library, and HEVC video extensions and the VP9 video extensions are examples of that, and you really should look at them for this month. Okay, so let's talk about the videos that were publicly disclosed. First up is CVE 2022-24512. This also is a remote code execution vulnerability, a low privilege, high complexity vulnerability from Microsoft's .NET framework and the Visual Studio environment. Although it doesn't really have a terrifying CVSS score, it's only got a 311, so it's not going to raise too many eyebrows. The high severity is likely due to remote code execution that doesn't require any sort of elevated user privileges or even interaction. Now, if you didn't know, Microsoft's Visual Studio, it's an integrated development environment. They also call these an IDE, and it's used to develop various products like websites, web apps, web services, and mobile apps. And .NET, it's a free cross-platform open source developer platform for building many different types of applications or products like the ones just mentioned. Exploitation of this vulnerability is less likely, even though it has been publicly disclosed. Next is an elevation of privilege vulnerability reported with CVE 2022-24459. This one impacts Microsoft Windows fax and scan service. Now, while this has a Microsoft exploitability assessment of quote-unquote less likely or exploitation less likely, its attack vector, the scan and fax service in Windows software, it's an attractive target for all sorts of bad actors. You know, this scan and fax service, some people could argue, that it's a leftover component of, early days of Windows or bygone era, the dawn of digital communications. This is just the type of back of the pantry type code that hackers look for, and Windows fax and scan services may be enabled by default. So something that's enabled by default with a known vulnerability and that's not being used is a perfect target for those bad actors. Now, this particular one impacts 17 versions of Windows Server and 26 versions of Windows, including version 7, 8.1, 10, or 11. So take a look at this one and put it in your patch schedule. And finally, from Microsoft, we can report on CVE 2022-21990. This is a return of a frequent, we've seen this one before, it's a frequent critical remote code execution vulnerability impacting Microsoft Remote, the Microsoft Remote Desktop Client. Now, similar to earlier vulnerabilities on this component, an attacker with control over a remote desktop server can trigger remote code execution on the client machine after a victim with a vulnerable remote desktop client connects to the attacking server. This one, though, has a low attack complexity. Other Previous similar vulnerabilities have had a high attack complexity. To exploit this one, an attacker requires control over a server and then must convince users to connect to it through either social engineering or DNS poisoning or using a man-in-the-middle technique as examples. An attacker could also compromise a legitimate server or host malicious code on it and wait for the user to connect. Impacted version of Windows include versions 7, 8.1, 10, 11, both 32 and 64-bit, as well as multiple versions of Windows Server, including 2008, 2008 R2, 2012, 16, 19, 22, etc. And Automox recommends applying this particular patch at your earliest convenience. Okay, we've covered the critical updates from March of 2022, and now it's time to turn the controls over to David Van Hernden, who's going to take us through a crawl, walk, run approach to incidents. Dave, the controls are all yours.
Thanks, Eric. And yeah, as you said, this is a crawl, walk, run overview of incident response. And this is going to be very high level. I'm going to be, throwing some jargon out there or covering some topics that at each stage you can really dive deep into and sink your teeth into. I know there's a broad audience attending here, so I don't want to assume any previous knowledge, but I also don't want to bore those that might already know this stuff. So I think it's generally important just to sit down, take this new perspective, and do a nice refresher on what best practice might look like. And so for incident response in this case, I'm bringing it into the context of an IT operations team where there's just a breakdown in your regular service delivery. Things are going as normal. Your team is following the processes and procedures that they already intrinsically know, and something just goes wrong. Something doesn't work right. An error on the end user screen, or a service happens to be down. Or something that you regularly do just needs to be accomplished, like a password reset. It's not necessarily broken. It's just a request that you need to fulfill for somebody. That's where we have this incident response piece to it of something is broken, we are trying to fix it or resolve it. And so from the crawl perspective, it's just going in and to get started into your service delivery, your incident response outline, is to take a look at what services you already deliver and do a basic outline of them. Just start the conversation with you and your teams on what it is that you offer to the company. The walk piece is to look over the shortest path to recovery, see what you can do to optimize and close the gap. And then the run piece is where you are an active participant and thinking about what's next and what's coming along in your space and in your industry and evolving your IT service management portfolio. So diving a little bit deeper into the crawl space of this is just to ask the question, what do you already know? What do you already do? And let's put that down into writing. I have these lines here just suggesting on the type of questions you can ask yourself and ask your team. One that I found to be extremely powerful in working with my team was saying, what is it that we're doing that we should just stop doing? What is it that we're doing that doesn't really give much value to the business, but we might think it does day to day? Or what are we doing that is taking away our ability to do more for our business and deliver more value? And I think that's going to be an important term to jot down into your brain, is to always contextualize these conversations around value to the business, because that's ultimately what matters. It's what you can deliver to your internal customers. And that's what leads to all of the next of these steps. What can we do for our customers? What new ideas can we bring to the table? What things that we see them asking for all the time that we can start to actually put our heads down into to see about doing it better? What services we already offer for folks that we can then evolve and take to the next step. And then ultimately, of course, there is the keeping the lights on. What do they come to us for when something breaks? And we always have to keep that eye, and we have to keep paying attention to the quote unquote boring stuff, the stuff that we just have to handle because it's a part of our job and a part of our responsibilities. And one thing that I can make a suggestion for in the crawl to walk transition is that once you know and understand what it is that you do for the business and what it is that you want to do for the business to create more value, you can then take those first few steps in identifying the processes, defining the processes, and start the conversations about improving these processes. For me and my team, it helped to sort of apply a Post-it note model to a whiteboard, whether it's a virtual one or one inside of your office, where you can just say, okay, here's how and where people come to us from our earlier part of documentation, and let's start verbally talking about these different use cases and these different scenarios on how do we actually pass the buck? How do we address this problem internally within our team? Because it's going to be entirely unique to you and your business on how things are handled depending on your talent and depending on the type of industry that you're in. It helps just to kind of follow this overall template of how do we find out about something being broken, not working as it should be, and how do we typically address it? And it is a very honest conversation about how do we do it. We know it's probably not great. We know it can probably be better. But let's not talk about that yet. Let's just talk about what it is that we're doing now. Do this baseline establishment of our process. And then the next step is to take that again, one or two steps in the right direction to bring that shortest path into recovery. Because again, what matters most is bringing value to the business, and what the business cares about most when things aren't working is to bring it right back up as fast as possible. And it helps in a visual sense as much as it is in a written one on an outline to just sort of see, okay, that user path of an issue that came in, they bounced through 3 different tools or systems or 3 different people of asking the same question. Is it possible that we could directly connect them to a resource or directly connect them to a piece of knowledge, or even better, just automate the resolution based on the input that they give us in the first place to resolve this issue? What I found in doing this process is that it unlocked my team's ability, because they know better than me how to get something fixed. They live in it every single day. As a manager, I have to focus and worry about far different things than just the technical issues that my field team has to address. And putting their work in this kind of a visual context helps them sort of unlock that ideation of how things could be done better. And that sort of lands us to this run phase, is once you've been able to have that conversation with your team, once you've been able to identify these new optimizations that you're able to map, you can then start to look at evolving your IT service management within your company. Once you have your processes outlined and your procedures defined on how something can be solved, that's when you will know this is a manual thing that we should look to automate. This is something that we can look to evolve and change and maybe come up with a new solution that no one else has even thought of before. I often find that, when we reach an error message, you can go online and see someone from 5 years ago who found it. But as things have been evolving and changing, especially within the last 2 years of this new cloud age and remote work age, there's been new problems, new challenges that even the latest IT service management resources from 2018 don't help us address. So we are very much in this next phase and this next space of IT service management, where everyone is coming up with their own new solutions and their own new ways of doing things. And to put a bit of a shameless plug of Automox and how we can help in doing this, kind of calling back to this earlier slide of bringing the shortest path to recovery into your team. Automox, what I found with a lot of ticketing systems that are out there that are built on the IT service management model, leaning in on ITIL as one that really applies a framework to it, is the ticketing systems that are built out there, Freshservice, ServiceNow, Zendesk. Automox has integrations with these, either just across of an API hook that you can call to, or direct integrations into these products that allow your senior engineers at the higher level of your team to write code and automate resolutions. To something as simple as my Bluetooth headset isn't working and the solution is to disable and re-enable. You might have a knowledge base article out there with instructions on screenshots and clicking a button and how the user could solve it themselves, or how a help desk person can address it for them. What's really amazing, what's really powerful with the ability to execute this kind of code on your endpoints with Automox is that your senior engineer can write a worklet that says disable, re-enable this adapter on this piece of hardware. And when that service desk ticket comes in, your help desk agent can just run that code directly within the ticket, or you can even automate that code to run. When that comes into your ticketing system, it can just automatically apply that as a baseline troubleshooting requirement to say, when I get this Bluetooth request, let's try this little worklet code to run and see if that fixes the issue automatically. And that's just scratching the surface of what is possible with the type of code that we can build and run on your systems. And that sort of goes to this evolution part of IT service management. I am learning and becoming a big speaker on how any problem can be solved with code. And if you are able to write and apply that code onto your users' endpoints and into your environment, there really isn't any sort of service breakdown or incident that you shouldn't be able to solve with that code. And there's a lot of powerful tools and a lot of amazing solutions that the Automox community has even pushed out there that you can reference to and lean on for evolving how you view your incident response plan overall. And the next shameless plug in terms of our community and what we're putting out there that can really help you take things to the next level is that of our Purple Team exercise post in our blog. I have the hyperlink here in case we share the slides out and you can click it, and then the URL listed at the bottom. But this was a fantastic blog post by my cohorts and coworkers at Automox in our product security and corporate security team, where they are really thought leaders in this Purple Team exercise idea. And I 100% recommend all of you reading that. And that does it for me. Eric, back to you.
All right, David, thank you so much. That was really informative, and I really love how you went into depth with some of these concepts. And just for everyone to know, this is what we're trying to do every month, bring you a new thought leader with important thought leadership topics for everybody to extend out. And many times there'll be security topics as well, just to extend out just some of the value we're trying to bring you with our monthly Patch Tuesday webinar series. So that being said, it's time for questions, and we hope you have plenty of them. Adam Whitman is on hand to answer any of them. And by the way, you may have not seen him before, but that right there, robot, that is Otto, and Otto is the Automox mascot, if you will. And one other thing too, if you notice, the format of our presentation today is a little bit different, and it's brand new. And we've refreshed our branding. And if you like it or don't, pop a comment in the chat, in the QA box as well. We'd love to hear what you think. So we're still waiting for questions. So while we do, we're going to move on. And if we get any questions, we'll stop, and then we'll come back to them. All right. So let's talk about a couple of things that I want to just bring to your attention, some resources, additional ways that you can learn and stay in touch with Automox. First up, this is brand new. We just launched it, Automox University. And it's our new go-to-training resource for technical product courses. Now, this is designed for people who have not used Automox before and need to get up to speed quickly. So while there may be new customers who find this information invaluable, it's also a terrific resource for existing customers. Let's say, for example, you're bringing up a new Automox administrator up to speed, and you need to get them up to speed quickly. Automox University is the place for you. Also, for those of you who have customer success managers, customer success engineers, when you have conversations with them, you're going to have the technical foundation to have more detailed questions and more detailed interaction with them. So there may be some people, and we have a lot of attendees on, and we appreciate that. There may be some of you who are still evaluating Automox. You could still leverage the power of this learning resource. Just sign up with your business email address, and you'll be ready to take a course. And we're going to have a regular cadence of courses every month. Now, currently, Automox University is organized across 5 major themes, and these include agent deployment, configuration management, cloud-based security, planning, scanning, patching, and using the Automox API to extend capability. Next, we've talked about this a bit, and I know David brought this up as well, the all-new Automox community. And we have a brand new design, and In the Automox community, there's the Worklit catalog and the Inside Hub for training, and also the Worklit catalog where you can, I don't know how many, we have 120 or more inventory of worklist to do all kinds of automation steps for you, and you can use them as is or modify them slightly. And Automox, the worklets in the catalog are either developed by Automox engineers or by customers, and of course then they're reviewed and vetted. Our experts review and vet them first. We have all kinds of categories there. We have live events. We have a new ranking system where you can earn badges and prizes. So take a look at the community. You don't need to be an Automox customer, although we appreciate if you are. It doesn't cost anything, so please sign up and create an account today. We have a bunch of webinars to go over. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. Now, on demand, we did a webinar a few weeks ago. It's now on demand, and it's about 2022 top IT trends to put on your radar. This is a really interesting discussion with our head of marketing and also our Chris Haas, our head of security. So Jay Goodman and Chris Haas did this webinar with myself. It's really informative. We think you'll like it, so please check it out. Coming up on the end of this month, on the 30th, we have a webinar with, we're going to show you how together Automox and Rapid7 can automate vulnerability discovery and remediation. The next day, we have a webinar on our new community, so you can learn a bit more in depth about that. And also coming up in April, we have our monthly office hours where you get to sign in and ask all kinds of questions about Automox or general IT. And plus on the 13th, the week after that, is the monthly Patch Tuesday series, and that one for April. Now put this one on your calendars on April 14th. We do an annual survey with a company called APG. They're a research organization. And we do a survey based on the state of IT operations. Now that report just got released. I believe it was released yesterday. It's available on our website. However, this is the webinar that goes along with that report. And I think you'll find it of interest, the findings that we have in terms of some of the stats we covered today, actually. But it's a great pulse of the industry. Please check it out. All right, and finally, how about following us on social media? We produce a lot of content here at Automox. And great way to be first to know about this content is to follow us on social media, particularly Twitter and LinkedIn. You'll get links to all kinds of things, so please check us out on social media. And let's just do a quick check. We don't have any questions, so it's time for our monthly prize giveaway. Now, this particular one, it's going to be given to the third unique person to correctly answer the trivia question, and you're going to win a $50 gift card. Now, by unique person, I mean like if you put 10 entries in a row, it's going to be your first one that counts. So we're looking for unique entries. So we appreciate those that want to really try to win. However, we're looking for the third unique person. Okay. So get ready for the trivia question. It's something we covered today during the session. All right, ready, everyone? Here it is. What is the name of either of the two video codecs impacted with critical vulnerabilities this month? So you have two different names you can put in there. Either one will be a winner. Use the QA box and please go. Third unique person will be the winner. What is the name of either of the two video codecs impacted with critical vulnerabilities this month? All right. Answers are starting to stream in. We're looking for the third unique one with a correct answer, of course. We've got a winner, folks. Mauricio, you are the winner. The correct answer was either HEVC or VP9. So, Mauricio, you are the winner of a $50 Amazon gift card. We'll be in touch to let you know how you can get that. And one quick check for questions. Any others? All right. Nope, no questions. So that brings us to the end of this month's Patch Tuesday webinar. And we really appreciate you joining us this month. It takes a lot of people to put this content together, and we love doing it for you. We hope this has been of value to everybody. Please remediate those critical vulnerabilities that we've highlighted this month. Protect your environment. We look forward to speaking to everyone next month. On behalf of David, Adam, and everybody here at Automox, thank you so much for joining us today. We wish you the best. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you again.